It's not a poetic phrase. It's a map. The man who understands this stops chasing what sparkles and starts managing what feels exciting. He doesn't beg for attention. He quietly sets up the space where a woman's imagination works for him. Attraction isn't applause. It's a careful shake-up. And the one who manages the shake-up controls what happens. The modern idea is silly. Men think that what women want comes from words, compliments, and attention, as if romance were a game with instant prizes. The more they talk, the less it means. The more they explain, the less they are worth. Desire, though, isn't born from too much. It's born from not enough and not being sure. What's rare is exciting. What's predictable is boring. What isn't given right away wakes up the body. And once the body wakes up, the mind races to explain why. Imagination does the work that words never will. There's a pain men never admit. They look for emotional safety, one that promises peace before the game even starts. But a woman, deep down, doesn't respond to peace. She responds to the pull between safety and a little risk. It's the rub between what could be and what isn't yet that starts the spark of interest. When you offer too much comfort, you offer a sleeping pill. When you offer a hint of risk, not danger, but mystery, you offer life. Comfort dulls. Exciting tension lights things up. Tension, when done right, doesn't hurt, it shapes. Machiavelli never wrote about seduction, but he wrote about human nature. And human nature doesn't change with hashtags. Men are driven more by the hope of getting something than by having it. The same rule guides what women want. Desire lives in the almost, not in the having. The almost is an investment. The almost is a story. The almost is where the mind creates pictures, ideas, meanings, and multiplies feelings. When you give everything, you kill hope. When you hint and wait, you feed excitement. The nervous man gives. The smart man measures. And he who measures creates value. Jung called the shadow the part of us we try to ignore, but the body knows is there, deep in a woman's mind. The idea of a man who challenges but doesn't give and wakes up the part that wants to be tested and figured out. He isn't a fake playboy. He's a mysterious presence who refuses to water himself down to be liked. He seems complete, and exactly because he doesn't fall apart, he forces her mind to leave comfort and join the game. The shadow moves when it meets a wall. Desire grows when it meets a solid shape. Liquid needs a cup. Energy needs an outline. Without an outline, it spills and is lost. The average man tries to convince. The nervous man tries to explain. The man who understands the game doesn't explain. He manages. He creates a beat that switches between high and low, contact and quiet, a signal and no signal. He lets her mind do the work. He lets not knowing make her invest. He lets his absence be read as a message. He knows desire isn't a button. It's a force field. And in that field, the rule is simple. Whoever sets the exciting tension sets who leads. And whoever sets who leads earns respect before anything else. That's why the language of power isn't begging. It's holding back. The man who masters emotional tension awakens a woman's interest without touching her. Because he first touches what controls everything, the mind. When the idea changes, the body follows. When the rhythm changes, the response changes. When need gets quiet, your presence takes over. And when your presence dominates, the rest, glances, gestures, surrender, happens as a result. The game starts before the first word. The game starts when you stop looking for safety and start giving off just the right amount of exciting tension. The game starts when you understand that desire is power, and power, before anything else, is self-control. The invisible mistake. Men try to create a bond when they should create a spark. The modern man approaches a woman looking for warmth. He wants to be liked, to be accepted, to feel safe. But safety kills the pull between opposites. And that pull is the root of desire. A close bond is the last stage of attraction, not the first. The more you try to create a bond too early, the more you destroy the mystery that could have made it happen naturally. A man's mistake is believing a woman falls in love with emotional comfort when she really falls for the mix of curiosity and a little control. The feminine deep mind doesn't respond to total security. It responds to emotional gravity. A woman doesn't look for a man who gives her everything. She looks for one who makes her feel. And feeling isn't built through explanations. It's built through energy exchange. While the average man talks about his life, the strategic one creates presence. He doesn't fill silence with words. He stretches it until she begins to speak first. He lets the quiet work for him. And the more she speaks, the more she invests. The one who invests first is already being won over. Machiavelli would say that men must either be gently won or completely defeated. Translated to attraction, don't be bland. Being bland is the death of exciting tension. You don't awaken a woman's desire by being always available. You awaken it by being a little unpredictable. Predictability is comfort, and comfort kills instinct. The emotional field of desire is ruled by one simple law. She must always feel she is earning something she could lose. Not because you trick her, but because you value what you give. Schopenhauer explained that the will acts before the mind understands. In other words, attraction happens before logic can step in. That's why a sensible talk never creates a magnetic pull. It creates friendship. It puts you in the category of safe, nice, harmless. But desire only appears when there's a sense of risk. The man who removes risk removes mystery. The man who removes mystery removes desire. The feminine mind doesn't crave perfect balance. It craves movement. Tension is a dance of opposites. Light and shadow, distance and closeness, warmth and pulling back. Remove one, and you remove the heartbeat of attraction. The modern man sabotages himself by looking for approval instead of gravity. He wants to be loved for being good, not desire for being strong. But admiration doesn't wake up the body. The pull between opposites does. You can make a woman admire your discipline, your kindness, your effort, and still she won't feel attraction. Because admiration touches the mind, not the instinct. Attraction isn't gratitude. It's imagination. It's born from what she imagines about you, not from what she knows. The more she imagines, the more she invests. And the more she invests, the more she desires. That's why a close bond is a result, not a plan. Connection is born after tension has already shown your value. A man who starts by connecting is like a general trying to make peace before the battle. He'll be respected, but never feared. And without a little awe, there's no desire. Every woman, consciously or not, senses who leads in the first minutes of talking. If you talk too much, you lose the lead. If you make excuses, you give up control. The one who manages the exciting tension manages how she sees you. And perception is the kingdom where desire is born. How desire works. A woman doesn't desire the man who gives her everything. She desires the one who holds back a little of what she wants. Desire is born from difference. It needs tension, friction, uncertainty. When something is fully offered, it loses its special weight. When something is held back, it becomes important. That's why the men who try to prove themselves by giving too much always fail. Desire doesn't live in too much. It lives in not enough. The feminine mind doesn't fall in love with logic. It falls into a rhythm. It doesn't surrender to words, but to feelings. When you fill every silence, you leave no space for her imagination to move. And desire is a creature of imagination. A woman's mind feeds on not being totally sure. She needs gaps to fill with her own meaning. The less she knows for sure, the more she interprets. And what she imagines feels personal. It becomes real. Because the brain doesn't fully tell the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined. That's why the greatest at this don't explain. They suggest. Machiavelli would have admired this plan. He said, men are driven by two forces, fear and desire. A woman desires what she feels she can't completely have, not because she wants control, but because she wants motion. Static admiration turns into boredom. Dynamic uncertainty turns into obsession. When a man becomes too easy to reach, he becomes a solved puzzle. But when his energy moves between closeness and distance, she begins to invest in figuring him out. And the more she tries to understand, the more she's already lost. Because in the game of desire, whoever tries to understand has already given in. Jung wrote that the feminine shadow looks for a masculine presence able to wake up her excitement without breaking her sense of self. The man who shows calm intensity becomes that idea. He's not the loud one, Not the clown, not the smooth talker. He's the one whose silence has meaning. He doesn't attract with noise, but with gravity. He doesn't chase attention. He bends it toward him. His absence feels like a presence. His holding back becomes fuel. Because tension is just energy that's held in. And energy that isn't released turns into fascination. A woman doesn't desire peace. She desires to pull between opposites. The emotional spark that flashes when she senses strength under control. The calm man who could get intense, but doesn't. The stable one who could consume, but chooses to watch. That's the puzzle of desire. Women are drawn to control hunter, not the desperate romantic. Because the hunter doesn't look for approval. He gives off power. He doesn't need to prove. He allows himself to be felt. And what is felt but not grabbed becomes magnetic. The common man wants to please. The powerful man stirs things up. He doesn't give constant reassurance. He gives a rhythm. He leads emotional pace, moving between approach and pause, attention and space. He lets her imagination do half the work. He knows that the most attractive thing is a silence that comes after a meaningful look, because silence, when filled with presence, speaks louder than words. And the body always hears what the voice tries to hide. Desire, therefore, is not something you create. It's something you allow. You don't make her feel. You stop interrupting what she could feel. When you stop looking for approval, you give off authority. When you stop needing a certain result, you show you have plenty. And having plenty is the most attractive state a man can be in, because it says without words, I don't need to chase. I attract. The woman doesn't fall for the one who chases. She falls for the one whose gravity pulls her in, the flippant power. The one who feels he must prove his worth becomes prey to the one who simply is. Desire isn't a game of words. It's a game of who leads. In every interaction, someone sets the emotional rhythm and the other follows. Most men, without knowing, let the woman take the lead by reacting to her instead of managing the situation. They let her mood set the tone, her attention decide their value, her silence create their worry. And whoever reacts first loses the lead. A woman doesn't fall for the man who seeks her approval. She falls for the one who doesn't depend on it, because calm detachment, when it's real, shows you have plenty. It says, I choose, I don't chase. And every feminine instinct recognizes that energy as strength. It's not arrogance. It's self-ownership. The man who acts from plenty doesn't compete. He decides. And the man who decides always controls the scene of desire. Machiavelli wrote that it's better to be feared than loved if you can't be both. In the language of attraction, fear means respect. It's not about scaring someone. It's about the sense of mystery and meaning that's around a man who doesn't bend too easily. Women respect men who are not emotionally available anytime. They test limits to see if there's a firm line. And when they find it, strangely, they relax, because structure calms emotion and control creates safety, not through words, but through energy. The flippin' power happens when the man stops trying to be liked and starts choosing what is worth his energy. He no longer seeks acceptance. He filters. He doesn't wait for a pat on the back. He watches reactions and adjusts his presence. He doesn't respond right away. He lets silence set the rhythm. And that silence, on purpose, firm and strong, does what no speech can do. It places him above the noise. Jung described the idea of the true self as mixing your shadow and light, total control of your own two sides. In attraction, this shows as a man who knows his own intensity, but doesn't show it off. He doesn't hide it either. He manages it. He understands that to wake up the feminine shadow, he must first have mastered his own, because a woman can only give into what she secretly respects, and she only respects what she can't fully tame. The average man, wanting to be loved, gives everything, time, attention, approval, but giving without choosing destroys value. The man of power gives little, but every action has weight. A look, a pause, a word, all on purpose. Each act becomes meaningful because it's rare. And what's rare becomes special. That's why the flippin' power isn't about trickery. It's about resetting who leads. The man doesn't pull back to punish. He pulls back to keep his gravity. He doesn't speak less to be mysterious. He speaks less because his silence already says enough. His attention isn't handed out freely. It's earned. And every woman, consciously or not, knows the same law that guides all attraction. The one who holds back a little controls the rhythm. The one who controls the rhythm runs the game. In the end, the woman doesn't surrender to words. She surrenders to the energy that lives behind them. Attraction is not just talking. It's careful adjustment. The more you talk, the more you weaken the signal. The more you explain, the more you dissolve the mystery. Because desire isn't about logic. It's about the emotional rhythm that your presence creates. A woman doesn't fall for what she understands. She falls for what she feels but can't quite name. And what can't be named grows. The modern man, obsessed with reassurance, kills the very thing he wants. He wants to be liked before being desired, accepted before being felt, understood before being respected. But the order of attraction is the opposite. First a spark, then respect, then a bond. The one who looks for emotional safety too soon ends up stuck in the comfort of being nice. And nice never wakes up instinct, because desire doesn't come from being the same. It comes from difference. Machiavelli would say that all relationships are struggles for influence. In the field of attraction, influence is invisible. It's not about bossing or giving in. It's about rhythm. When you control the rhythm, you control how she sees you. And when you control perception, you command emotion. The man who governs emotion governs everything, even when he seems to be doing nothing. That's why true attraction isn't about moving a lot. It's about gravity. Everything moves around the man who doesn't need to move. Jung described becoming whole as a process of mixing strength and softness, reason and instinct, light and shadow. The attractive man is the one who no longer fights his instincts but directs them with presence. He doesn't fight his desire. He guides it. He doesn't run from his tension. He uses it as a bridge. He doesn't hide his energy. He refines it into calm power. Because desire without control is chaos, but control without desire is empty. The art is in balance. A woman's interest isn't awakened by pushing. It's awakened by permission. She allows herself to feel when she senses a man before her is not afraid of feeling. When he no longer says sorry for his desire, his presence becomes freeing. Because the feminine doesn't open through pressure. It opens through the pull of opposites. And that pull is born the moment a man stops being afraid of his own instinct. He no longer hides it nor shows it off. He simply is. And that calm acceptance, that quiet strength, that held-in pull is what makes her body respond before her mind can think. Desire is not about winning someone over. It's about matching energy. The more a man is centered in himself, the more his energy speaks for him. He doesn't attract with hard effort. He attracts by being himself. He doesn't seek attention. He receives it naturally, because the greatest puzzle of attraction is this. When you stop trying to wake up desire, you become the reason it wakes up.